Alright. Alright, y'all. Sorry, that might look a little different. I forgot to type in the title on the Facebook one. So, sorry, it's another late night, y'all. I had a softball game tonight, and then we played a JV game that I didn't know we were playing, and it's Thursday night, so I also had to get the grandbaby. So, uh, okay, we are on day 5 of our Holy Week. 5 out of 8 days, I think, that we were following along. And this is what they call Maundy Thursday. And I was looking up, I had looked it up before and I had forgot. But Maundy comes from the Latin word mandatum, which means commandment or a mandate, which is referring to Jesus' command to love and serve others. Just, I'm sure y'all are dying to know that. Uh, I am going to read some out of Matthew chapter 26, and I'm going to read some out of John 13. And it might be a lot of reading, so bear with me a little bit, but the several 3 or 4 things that I want to talk about, I'm going to have to read enough of that for y'all to know what I'm wanting to talk about. So, I'm going to start. Also, these stories are in all 4 Gospels. Parts of them are somewhere located in all 4 Gospels. Matthew chapter 26, Mark chapter 14, Luke chapter 22, and John chapter 13. So, but I'm going to start in Matthew chapter 26, and I'm going to start in verse 17 and read through 30, and then I'm going to skip down to another part. So, the first part of it is, now on the first day of the feast of the unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus, saying to him, "Where do you want us to prepare for you to eat the Passover?" And he said, "Go into the city to a certain man and say to him, 'The teacher says, my time is at hand. I will keep the Passover at your house with my disciples.'" So the disciples did as Jesus had directed them, and they prepared the Passover. When evening had come, he sat down with the 12. Now, as they were eating, he said, "Assuredly, I say to you, one of you will betray me." And they were exceedingly sorrowful, and each of them began to say to him, "Lord, is it I?" He answered and said, "He who dipped his hand with me in the dish will betray me. The Son of Man indeed goes just as it is written of him, but woe to that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been good for that man if he had not been born." Then Judas, who was betraying him, answered and said, "Rabbi, is it I?" And he said to him, "You have said it." And as they were eating, Jesus took bread, blessed and broke it, and gave it to the disciples and said, "Take, eat, this is my body." Then he took the cup and gave thanks and gave it to them, saying, "Drink from it, all of you, for this is my blood of the new covenant, which is shed for many for the remission of sins. But I say to you, I will not drink of this fruit of the vine from now on until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom." And when they had sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. And now I'm going to skip down to Matthew 26. I'm going to start in verse 36. It says, Then Jesus came with them to a place called Gethsemane and said to the disciples, Sit here while I go and pray over there. And he took with him Peter and the two sons of Zebedee, and he began to be sorrowful and deeply distressed. And then he said to them, My soul is exceedingly sorrowful, even to death. Stay here and watch with me. And he went a little farther and fell on his face and prayed, saying, O my Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will. Then he came to the disciples and found them sleeping, and said to Peter, What? Could you not watch with me 1 hour? Watch and pray, lest you enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. And again, a second time, he went away and prayed, saying, O my Father, if this cup cannot pass away from me unless I drink it, your will be done. And he came and found them asleep again, for their eyes were heavy. So he left them, went again, and prayed the third time, saying the same words. Then he came to his disciples and said to them, Are you still sleeping and resting? Behold, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is being betrayed into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand. And while he was still speaking, behold, Judas, one of the 12, with great multitudes, with swords and clubs, came from the chief priests and elders of the people. Now his betrayer had given them a sign, saying, Whomever I kiss, he is the one, seize him. Immediately he went up to Jesus and said, Greetings, Rabbi, and kissed him. And now I'm going to move over to, well, I had Mark, a place in Mark, but I lost it. But there was, oh, no, it wasn't Mark, sorry, Luke. And I'm in chapter 22. And this is also about the prayer in the garden, but I'm going to read 39 through 46. And it says, Coming out, he went to the Mount of Olives as he was accustomed, and his disciples also followed him. When he came to the place, he said to them, Pray that you may not enter into temptation. And he was withdrawn from them about a stone's throw, and he knelt down and prayed, saying, Father, if it is your will, take this cup away from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done. Then an angel appeared to him from heaven, strengthening him. And being in agony, he prayed more earnestly. Then his sweat became like great drops of blood falling down to the ground. When he rose up from prayer and had come to his disciples, he found them sleeping from sorrow, and he said to them, Why do you sleep? Rise and pray, lest you enter into temptation. And now I'm skipping over to John chapter 13, and this is going back to the actual Lord's Supper parts of it. And it says, Now before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour had come, that he should depart from this world to the Father, having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. And supper being ended, the devil having already put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hand, and that he had come from God and was going to God, rose from supper and laid aside his garments, took a towel, and girded himself. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet, and to wipe them with the towel with which he was girded. Then he came to Simon Peter, and Peter said to him, Lord, are you washing my feet? Jesus answered and said to him, What I am doing you do not understand now, but you will know after this. Peter said to him, You shall never wash my feet. And Jesus answered him, If I do not wash you, you have no part with me. And Simon Peter said to him, Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head. And Jesus said to him, He who is bathed needs only to wash his feet, but is completely clean. And you are clean, but not all of you. For he knew who would betray him, therefore he said, You are not all clean. So when he had washed their feet, taken his garments, and sat down again, he said to them, Do you know what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you say well, for so I am. If I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example, that you should do as I have done to you. Most assuredly, I say to you, a servant is not greater than his master, nor is he who sent greater than he who sent him. If you know these things, blessed are you if you do them. So, I know that was a lot of reading. I'm glad y'all. I hope you stuck with me through it. Uh, I've just read all that. I'm gonna kind of break it down. And there was more that happened in this night. Uh, like I said, every night, go back, read more of it. But the Lord tells Peter he's gonna deny him 3 times. He predicts that it happens. Uh, After he's arrested, that's the start of what happened tomorrow. But uh, you know, but these were the things that I wanted to focus on. So Jesus, we see here, he starts a new tradition. I mean, it's a tradition. I've never been to a church where this is not participated in some way or another. But he starts a new tradition. It's what we call communion, and it's to remind us that his sacrifice is what brings us back to God. Uh, think about why this meal is so special. He tells them to remember him whenever they eat together. Uh, the bread and wine both to remind us of Jesus' love and how he gave his life for us. So at this final Passover meal, Jesus is sharing it. Uh, what we call it the Lord's Supper. Uh, he's sharing it with his disciples, showing what love looks like by serving others and washing their feet in their humility as a model of servanthood. I just want to go back and reiterate some of that. When he broke bread, he he compared that to his body. The broken bread is like his broken body that they hung on the cross. The wine represents his blood that he shed for us. So, um, and then I go back to he washes their feet. Uh, he knew what was about to happen, and yet he still washed feet. And so this shows the true heart of Jesus. He was loving until the very end. Real love like this is not seen in is real love like this is seen in action, not just in words. And that was John 13 and 14. I was just going to reread that again. It says, if I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. He's saying, if I'm going to humble myself and serve you, you ought to also serve one another. So, uh, and my question was, why did Jesus wash his disciples' feet? And then how can we serve one another more in our home like Jesus did? True leadership begins in low places, and greatness in God's kingdom starts with serving others. We should be reflecting on where or what or how we can serve, forgive, or surrender to the Lord by following his example and asking him to help us with that. And then I did not read down this far, but I'm going to go ahead and read this to you real quick. Like John 13 and 34 says, I'm going to read 31 through 35. It says, so when he had gone out, Jesus said, now the Son of Man is glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God is glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself and glorify him immediately. Little children, I shall be with you a little while longer. You will seek me. And as I said to the Jews, where I am going, you cannot come. So now I say to you, and this was the verse, a new commandment I give to you, that you love one another as I have loved you, that you also love one another. By this, all will know that you are my disciples if you have love for one another. And so, what was that last sentence I said? Yeah, we should be reflecting on where, what, how we can serve, forgive, or surrender to the Lord by following His example, and then asking Him to help us with that. And like I just said, we are called to love one another as He has loved us. And then later, after His supper, we see Him. He is agonized in the Garden of Gethsemane, praying in deep sorrow, fully surrendering to the Father's will before He was arrested and taken away. And he's praying to the Lord, and when he says, "Not my will, but yours," he's trying to get on the same page as the Father. He was, and this is Kyrgyz thinking. He's still a man. He's still born of flesh, and he understands that what he is brutally about to endure and feel. And I can't imagine anyone wanting to go through that or even volunteering. But, and listen up here, okay? There's a but. But my Lord and Savior stuck it out. And who did he do that for? Me. I kept him from throwing in the towel. And he did it for you. You kept him from caving. We were on his mind the entire time. Like he literally sweated blood for us as he was praying. He was praying so hard for us, for himself, because he knew what he had to do for us, that he sweated blood. I heard someone say one time that this story, how this story led them to believe that gardens are extremely important. And they said that mankind was created in a garden, mankind fell in a garden, and here we see mankind's restoration is starting in this garden. And then what we talked about last night leads to this night in the garden, ending with Judas actually betraying him with a kiss, and Jesus being arrested. So, like I've been saying all week long, I'm just trying to do a condensed, breaking down version. But this is the gospel. There was a new covenant. It's been established. Jesus willingly walked toward the cross so that we could be forgiven and reconciled to God. We do not need to forget that what he has done and what it cost him. Even, like I said last night, spoiler alert, we know where he ends up. But just something stuff to ponder on. It, a very special, a very spiritual, emotional week every day. If you've, every day I have done a different topic trying to follow the Holy Week. And sometimes I think I should just show that I should go live when I'm doing my studying, because I feel like I get more, like I have more thoughts, and then I'm trying to type them all down, but it just takes longer. And so then y'all would be staring at me for a really long time sometimes, but nobody wants to do that. But I do. I love y'all. I thank y'all for listening to me. And, I hope that y'all do participate in the Lord's Supper and even the foot washing, and that you truly understand what it stands for, what it means. We're getting down to the nitty gritty of it, and I'm kind of excited about it. I'm trying to not go forever and keep repeating myself, but I hope you're pointing out some stuff to y'all. But thank y'all. If you've made it this far, I appreciate you for listening, and I love you, and we'll be back on here tomorrow sometime.